Vallabha Girivaradari Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanna Chari Ram Vanna Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thanks, bro. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Adjustments back there. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thanks everybody for being here. Oh my God. I almost adjusted the microphone. So today we're going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first Canto, first chapter, first text, very, very beginning. This is kind of a hard verse to talk on because it covers so much, so we're going to only cover a little bit. And if you're inspired and you really want to know everything Prabhupada says, you're welcome to read the purport in its entirety. It's a few pages. And basically, Srila Prabhupada, he goes through each of the qualities of Krishna that are described in this verse, because this verse identifies very clearly the absolute truth. And not completely, because nothing can completely do that, but I can get close. And Vyasadeva is the writer of the Vedic literature and the compiler of Vedic knowledge, and is the writer of this book here, Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Vyasadeva wrote this book, Srimad Bhagavatam, and he is starting off with this verse, first verse. And like we do in all classes, we chant this one mantra to begin the discussion on transcendental subject matter, because we're following the footsteps of Vyasadeva. So you can see that here, the very first line he says here in Sanskrit, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So generally speaking, we follow in the footsteps of Vyasadeva like this. And before every class or every lecture, our spiritual master has, by his own example, instructed us also. Srila Prabhupada instructed the whole society to chant this mantra. And we do it responsively, just like we do in Kirtan. So we'll do that before we read this. And then the other point to notice is how much Sanskrit is here. This verse is lots of Sanskrit. And I had to pick a meter to chant it, so I'm not sure what other people use, but this meter works. So let's chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and then we'll do call and response on this long Sanskrit just because it's so much. Other verses are shorter and we can all chant those together. We also plan on getting the screen working so we can have more interaction this week. We're going to do more managing of things this week. Hare Krishna. Okay, so please chant this with me. or actually responsively. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So in the word for word you can see, I don't know if you guys have books or not, if you have your phones, you can go to Vedabase, put in Vedabase and all the literature is there. Om is translated here as, O my Lord. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I'm the syllable Om. So he's addressing the Supreme Lord. Om Namo Namaha, offering my obeisances. So Vyasadeva is offering his obeisances to the Supreme Lord. Bhagavate, the personality of Godhead. A little more description. Bhagavate. If you get into the exact words of Bhaga and Van, this is, Bhagavate is derived from that word, Bhagavan. It's a good word to describe the Supreme Lord. Bhaga means opulences, and Van means the possessor of those opulences. So if anyone is, if anyone has some wealth, some fame, some knowledge, some power, some beauty, and renunciation. Wealth, fame, power, knowledge, beauty, or renunciation. Say you have so many things, but you're not attached to it. You could lose it all tomorrow and you'd still be fine. If anyone has, these are considered opulences. So someone has some beauty, people are attracted to them. Someone has some power, people are attracted to power. And people want to wield power and control others. Or whatever. Someone has a lot of wealth, people are attracted to people with money. So Bhagavan is the one who possesses all these opulences in full, with no limitation. That's Bhagavan. So consequently, the person who is Bhagavan is all attractive, right? Someone who has all the opulences, if we're attracted to a little bit of opulence, some beauty, some knowledge, some fame, or whatever it might be, the person with all of that is all attractive. And so the word Krishna means exactly that, the all-attractive person. So Krishna is not a secular name to call God, just we call Krishna because whatever. It actually has a meaning. And it is an accurate and very precise and wonderful description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And another place Prabhupada describes the Supreme Lord as like a magnet, and we're all like little iron shavings. And so you get close enough to Krishna and you get attracted to him. Krishna is attracting all of us through his opulences and through his qualities, personal qualities as well. So that's Bhagavate. Therefore Prabhupada translates Bhagavate unto the personality of Godhead. He could have said the one who possesses all opulences and therefore is all attractive, and his name's Krishna, and so we call him. He could say that, but Prabhupada is also a poet in his own way. Unto the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, unto Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. So Prabhupada here is emphasizing the personal qualities of the Supreme Lord, that he's someone's son, to distinguish him from someone who else might be called Vasudeva or Bhagavan. Sometimes Narada is called Bhagavan, right, because he has so many opulences. And so many people are attracted to him, particularly his renunciation. He's a brahmachari, transcendental brahmachari. Also, just to say, Vasudeva also means one who's spread everywhere. He's present everywhere, all the time. So it's another quality or characteristic of the Supreme Lord. Jai. Okay. So now let's try to, we'll read the verse responsively like we do in Kirtan. You guys, some of you know the Sad Goswami Astakam. We have different prayers and songs to different saints and sages in our tradition. And there's one song to the 6 Goswamis, who are... Do we have a picture of them up there? No, I don't see. Far right on the altar. Okay, you got to get really close. There's the 6 Goswamis. And they were direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya, and they brought out the essence of the Vedas. And therefore they taught the essence of spiritual life, which is bhakti yoga. So there's a song for them, and the meter within that song works for this. So, Janmadyasya yato yaton vayad itaratash charteshva bhigyasvarat. Janmayasya yato vayad itatarash charteshva bhigyasvarat. Tena brahma ya adikavaye muyanti yat surayam. Tena brahma ya adikavaye muyanti yat suraya. Tejo varimridam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha. Tejo varamridayata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha. Damna svena sada nirastakuhukam satyam param dhimayi. Damna svena sada nirastakuhukam satyam param dhimayi. Jai. Anybody want to try it? Just kidding. Oh. So no offense, Prabhu, I'm just going to move on because it's just a lot of Sanskrit. But I know you can do it. It looks like most people have it with them. Om, O my Lord, Namaha, offering my obeisances. Bhagavate, unto the personality of Godhead. Vasudevaya, unto Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, or Lord Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord. Janma Adi, creation, sustenance, and destruction. Asya, of the manifested universes. Yataha, from whom. Anvayat, directly. Ittarataha, indirectly. Cha, and. Arteshu, purposes. Abhigya, fully cognizant. Svarat, fully independent. Tene, imparted. Brahma, the Vedic knowledge. Hrida, consciousness of the heart. Yaha, one who. Adikavaye, unto the original created being. Uyanti, are illusioned. Yat, about whom. Surayaha, great sages and demigods. Tejaha, fire. Vari, water. Mridam, earth. Yatha, as much as. Vinimayaha, action and reaction. Yatra, whereupon. Sarga, 3 modes of creation, creative faculties. Amrisha, most factual. Almost factual, yeah, thank you. Dhamna, along with all transcendental paraphernalia. Thena, self-sufficiently. Sada, always. Nirasta, negation by absence. Kuhukam, illusion. Satyam, truth. Param, absolute. Dhimai, I do meditate upon. Wow. Okay. Does someone want to read the translation for us? You would? Armando? You have a microphone for Armando?
Oh my Lord.
Just use your stage voice. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to adjust my microphone. So this is a very poetic and description of the Supreme Lord. What qualities, they might have turned it down back there too. What qualities are here that you see that Vyasadeva is describing of the Supreme Lord? He's independent. How independent is he? Completely independent. Anybody else? All pervading? Yeah. Can you say it louder? Free from any illusions and illusory representations. So Krishna's form itself and Krishna himself is not illusion by anything, and his form itself is not illusion and has no illusory representations in it. Nothing about Krishna is illusion. He's fully conscious. Yeah. Krishna's fully conscious. What's that? He's the absolute truth. Yeah. All right. I'm getting somewhere. What's that? He bewilders everyone. Whoa. Well, that certainly is bewildering, that Krishna takes a form that kind of looks like ours, or maybe our form looks like his, rather, and that is bewildering. That Krishna has no illusory representation in himself. It's actually that our forms are an illusory representation of Krishna, because we are, and everything in the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, shadow of the spiritual world. Good point. He is to be meditated on. Yeah. We were talking about this the other day too. If you read one of our books, Srila Prabhupada wrote a summary study of the 10th canto. And in the 10th canto there, there's a section where Krishna is meditating on himself. Krishna will wake up in the morning, and he has so many morning things he does. And one of those things he does is he sits in meditation. And we also sit in meditation. And Prabhupada describes Krishna as giving an example. You should wake up early, take a shower, get clean, sit in meditation. And what does Krishna meditate on? He meditates on the absolute truth. So he meditates on himself. And Prabhupada says, don't misunderstand this, that you should be meditating on yourself. Yeah. Any other qualities Vyasadeva is describing in here that we didn't cover? He's the cause of all causes. And what's that? Yes. Of all those things. Krishna, simply put, Krishna is the cause of all causes. Not only of creation, not only of maintenance, like keeping us alive and happy and in full consciousness and love and all these things, but he also destroys everything at the same time. He's also like, yeah, directly and indirectly. Yeah, directly and indirectly. Like indirectly, you can see if you look outside, if we're sitting inside and we look outside and you see that the branches are moving, you can assume that the wind is blowing, right? So this is how we can indirectly perceive something. Indirectly, you go stand outside and you feel the breeze on you, right? Through your senses. Currently, we have to indirectly perceive Krishna, actually through these material senses. And by Krishna's mercy, he comes to us in the form of the deity. He takes in the form of stone or wood or painting or like that, so we can perceive Krishna's existence. It is directly Krishna. But because we are so used to going through this mind and these bodies and our senses to interact with this world, we can't directly perceive Krishna. So out of his mercy and on the request of his pure devotees, Krishna resides in the deity form and allows us to render service like that. And this will gradually purify our senses. So we can come to the point to directly perceiving Krishna with our transcendental senses. And that is the point of Krishna consciousness. Because in that state of mind, one is completely happy. Completely happy. Naturally. Let's see here. Can somebody read the second paragraph? We're going to skip the first one, and it starts with Vasudeva. One of the ladies like to read. They turned it down, so it should be working. Let's see. If it starts with feedback, just shut it off and use your stage voice.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, it works.
Vasudeva, or Lord Sri Krishna, is the cause of all causes. Everything that exists emanates from the Lord. How this is so is explained in later chapters of this work. This work is described by Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Purana because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The history of the Srimad Bhagavatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Sri Vyasadeva after he had attained maturity in transcendental knowledge. He wrote this under the instructions of Sri Naradaji, his spiritual master. Vyasadeva compiled all Vedic literatures containing the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras or the Brahma Sutras, the Puranas and Mahabharata, and so on. But nevertheless he was not satisfied. His dissatisfaction was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narada advised him to write on the transcendental activities of Lord Sri Krishna. These transcendental activities are described specifically in the 10th canto of his work. But in order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories.
So the 10th canto is really what the Srimad Bhagavatam is, because it describes the transcendental activities of Krishna. So what is the recommendation here? How do we get to that point? How should we proceed? It's like the Rudra principle there. Oh my gosh. Think so? Will it make a bunch of? It's gonna make a bunch of noise. I can just hold. You're gonna need it back to pass it around. Oh, okay. Well, I'll hold it and then we can try to pass it around. Whew. All right. We'll get this figured out eventually. Yeah. At the very end here, what is the recommendation? How do we approach an understanding of Krishna? What do you think? With submissiveness and an open mind. Okay, yeah, this is true. Anything else? We proceed gradually. Yeah, here there's a recommendation to proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. Krishna's activities in the spiritual world are transcendental. There's no tinge of material influence. They're completely transcendental. Even though Krishna, again, he's playing like a little boy with his friends. A naughty little boy. He's got so many activities that, if you had that child, you would be chastising him. But they're not tinged by any material influences. And to understand that is very difficult. Just like when we see the deity, in the beginning, you just see stone, right? If you don't have any transcendental understanding, if you can't get the knowledge of the transcendentally realized souls from the devotees who understand that this is actually Krishna himself, one can go on simply in that consciousness, perceiving the deity as stone. And this is an unfortunate consciousness. In the same way, one can, without sufficient education in spiritual practice, one can try to understand the pastimes of Krishna too soon and then interpret them in a material way and maybe think of Krishna as something like me, like that. So therefore one should proceed gradually, step by step, through the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's 9 cantos before you get to the 10th canto. And that is all preparatory information. It's preparing us to actually understand the substance of life. And so you have these different variations of different devotees who are on different levels of the path of spiritual advancement and intimacy ultimately with the Supreme Soul and surrender with the Supreme Soul all the way to the end. The liberation at the last canto, the 9th canto, and then you have Krishna's pastimes and everything that goes on when living entities are liberated and how they interact with Krishna. So everything 1 to 9 is generally about living entities who are in the material world, and there's something between them and Krishna, and then how that gets resolved, right? And all these different situations. So we can see ourselves in those same positions and understand how to extricate ourselves from material nature with the help of the devotees and the spiritual master and all these things. What's another reason why you can think of why one should proceed gradually beyond what I said, or you can even repeat what I said and make an adjustment if you want. Why would one have to proceed gradually? Have to, need to, or want to proceed gradually in spiritual life towards this most high thing? We have a lot of attachments. Very good. Yeah, we do, don't we? Do you think, everyone's experienced this, right? We all have a lot of attachments to these bodies, to our mind, to our identification as who we think we are, temporary identification that we could change at any moment. Yeah, we have this experience. I was going to say something else, but I got off track. So yeah, we have attachments. So we want to proceed gradually, because if we try to artificially renounce or artificially try to pretentiously try to be on a higher platform than we are, it will be weak, right? So if you have a plant, if you try to grow your plant
and you try to restrict the roots. For example, say, I just want to have a big plant and the soil is too expensive, so I'm going to put gravel and put a little bit of soil on the top, but I want my plant to go really tall. And then, you somehow trick your plant into growing very tall, but it's very skinny and it grows tall. It doesn't have any support at the bottom, so the plant will go, it'll fall over, right? It has to have that support. So the development in spiritual life has to be gradual in that sense, and it can't be pretentious either. Like, I just want the fruits, but I don't want the required depth to actually be able to appreciate the fruits. And so actually the plant won't grow any fruits. That's one reason, because we have so many attachments. And if we don't deal with those things, we can't become deep into spiritual life. Basically surrendered to Krishna. So we have no attachments, and whatever Krishna wants, we're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready, Krishna. And in this way, Krishna will engage you in so many ways in his service. And you become supremely blissful and happy. But yeah, because we have so many attachments. So gradually, those things can go away if we engage in Krishna's service. Any other thoughts on why gradual is good? Why gradual is good? Yeah, Prabhu. Right. So we can properly, in a robust way, develop a service attitude. So we can go gradually to learn the fundamentals, be very rooted in the basics, so that when we do come to Krishna and doing Krishna's service, we never stray from that. The principle is we're always trying to develop how we're a servant. Anybody else? Kaylee? Mm-hmm. So to take the time so we don't just jump. It's more of a sincere effort rather than just trying to get the highest, most thing quickest as soon as possible. Yeah, if we take what is very difficult to achieve and we take it very simply, like, oh, this is easy or whatever, the Sanskrit word for that is sahaja. Someone says sahaja means they take everything very simply. Like, oh, there's not a whole lot to it. In one sense, spiritual life is very simple. Simply chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But how much chanting do you have to do? So much chanting and so much meditation. And also the right attitude is there. So many things are actually there because we have attachments, because we have misconceptions. And like what you're saying, to not move too quickly, because whatever good qualities we develop, if we try to jump ahead, we might leave those things behind. We have to bring those things with us as we progress. And humility is an essential component of that. Absolutely. One thing I was thinking of about, what time is it? I'm just getting lost. Is there a clock? Oh, there's a clock there. We go till 8:20 and then questions. Jai. Shishi Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. I was thinking we have to move gradually because that's the natural course of things also. Not only just because we want to, and because it's good for us to consciously move gradually. When you try to artificially move forward, it's artificial. And so you don't actually get the result. When you do anything artificially, you cannot sustain it for any amount of time. So to get here to this point in the temple room, we had a gradual progression. We had to wake up, we took a shower, then we had to get dressed, and all these little steps little steps gradually brought us to this point where we chanted our rounds, we prepared ourselves, we had to get in the vehicle, we drove here. Everybody had gradual steps that they took to get themselves here at this point. And if you skipped some of those steps, being here might be a little uncomfortable. If you forget your mask, it's like, oh gosh, I got to go back home and get my mask now. And then your day is like all disturbed. So if we get too close to Krishna and we're like, oh, I didn't know this. And something's going on, and you're like, whoa, I'm in the wrong place right now because I'm not aware of what's going on and how this all works. Then, one's out of place. So in this sense, wherever we're at is where we're supposed to be, because there has been a series of gradual steps that have brought us to where we're at today and what decisions we're making as we decide to progress forward. And it is always gradual, whether we're aware of it or not. So this point is very, very essential for practically being successful at anything, what to speak of achieving the most difficult thing, which is Krishna consciousness. Now, so let me ask you, is becoming Krishna conscious the most difficult thing, or is it really the easiest thing? What do you think? Depends on how much we want it. Why? Why is that? Can you explain that?
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that as people surrender unto him, he rewards them accordingly. So if someone says, Krishna, I really want you, sincerely, he'll give himself to them. But if someone is insincerely looking like a devotee externally, but internally stuck with so many attachments, Krishna will reciprocate according to their consciousness, not to their make-believe show of devotion.
So that means Krishna's he's gonna help you either way. We have attachments, right? So if we're praying Krishna, I want to be a devotee, and we have so many attachments, and maybe some we're holding on to consciously, and some we're holding on to unconsciously. Krishna is going to still help us because Krishna is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He's the friend of all living entities. And Krishna's nature is that someone may even pray to him for material things, thinking that that's what's going to make them happy. And Krishna says, I'm not such a fool that I'll just give them material things. I'll actually give it to them in such a way that they'll never want it again. So yes, we'll approach Krishna if we approach Krishna with a sincere heart, but at the same time, we don't realize we have attachments, or we are holding on to something. Either way, Krishna will make some arrangement to help us progress, and it's up to us to accept it or not. So Krishna will reciprocate, but it might be in a way that is not necessarily what you would call blissful sometimes, because he's trying to bring us to blissfulness. So for example, if one is praying for, they want courage or something like that, will God just give you courage, or will he put you in a situation where you can exercise courage? Because then you have to go through the steps. And if you do it, if you choose to do it, on your own free will, you choose to do it, then that quality becomes yours. And you've developed yourself of your own free will. Krishna has simply given you the opportunity, and you've chosen to take it. In the end, we have to choose to love Krishna. And so therefore, Krishna will not necessarily give us love for him. We have to act out those behaviors and qualities that would manifest love, like serving. And Krishna, naturally, will reciprocate. Because if you, like a child in some sincere attempt to please the parents, makes some mistake, it's not considered. You just see the mood, you see the intention, you see the desire, and then by that desire, Krishna will bless you with qualities. By his association, Krishna will bless you with qualities. But it's never devoid of the participation of the individual soul. It's never devoid of that. We have to do our part. We're part and parcel. So if we do our part, Krishna will do his part. Our part is very small, anu. In the Sanskrit, it's very small, anu. And Krishna's part is vibhu. He does the big part. So, good thing. We just have to take care of our own consciousness, make it nice. And then around that, Krishna will make everything wonderful. His reciprocation will depend on our consciousness. Just like a father whose son is immature and doesn't know how to use the family wealth properly. He restricts him, maybe gives him a budget. Here is, $500 a month. If you use this properly, maybe I'll give you some more. But when the son is grown up and mature, son or daughter, the father gives all the wealth in the storehouses, satisfied. I can trust you with all the family's accumulated wealth over years and years and years, and you'll take care of it nicely, and I can now retire. He wants to see that the children are sufficiently experienced and mature, such that they're not ruined by the responsibility, right? Because also if you take on too much responsibility and you're not ready, we may say, yes, Krishna, I want to be involved in your transcendental pastimes. When will I be there? But we might not be ready for that. If we don't have a completely transcendental understanding, when we see the way Krishna behaves, when the way we see the devotees behave in Krishna's personal presence, we might take it as something material or insane or whatever, because it might be very exalted, completely based off of love and blissfulness. Like if you stand in front of the sun, if you get too close, it'll burn you up. So Krishna is like the sun, millions of suns, but he's emanating blissfulness and beauty. Typically what happens when someone sees Krishna, they just faint. It's overwhelming, right? So like that. What was my question to you? Will you help me? I get lost. Oh, yeah. That was a good question. I forgot about that. So is it easy? Is it easy or hard? Or is it both at the same time? The question is Krishna consciousness really easy, or is it actually really hard? Yeah, Sudevi. Simple for the pure of heart. Complicated for the impure, or the crooked. Yeah, so if we have material influences, it's difficult. And Krishna reciprocates in such a way to help those things come out. Therefore, Krishna consciousness sometimes seems difficult, and there's challenges that are there. But if we have right consciousness, we can understand that actually Krishna's arranged a situation for all of us to learn something. We should all just start with the assumption that we are all imperfect. And then from there we can rely on Krishna to arrange so many interactions by his grace, by his mercy, some difficulties, so that we can make advancement. And if we follow the suggestion of Kali to be very humble, then we can take every situation and learn from it, how we can become free from these attachments that are actually brought us together in this difficult point, and see somehow how Krishna's mercy, and actually just simply being humble and appreciating that we've all come to Krishna on some level, that core appreciation means that everyone in here has a level of sincerity that is actually pure. If we can appreciate that coming here is very rare. How many people are here in the temple room right now? 15 people? 20 people? How many people live in Houston? Oh, it's like, how many? 2 million? Okay, so the whole Houston metro area, you could say 4 million or so, maybe 5. All right. Is anybody good at math? Put 20 over 4 million. Yeah. So what's the percentage of people here to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? 0.00000000000000000. 5. That's right. 2, yeah. So if you make a graph out of that, it does this. It's practically 0. The limit has been reached. Practically 0. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, you're all rare, special souls. And the more you chant Hare Krishna, the more you'll understand that. It just becomes very clear how much happiness is there in chanting of the holy name of Krishna. And that those who have taken up have a level of sincerity that is extremely rare to find in this material world. So in that sense, it's very difficult to even come to this position where we're just trying. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. But at the same time, if one is sincere, it becomes easy as anything. Because Krishna is the Supreme Soul. He's everywhere. He knows everything. He's supremely independent. So if you want to work with Krishna, Krishna's got no problem working with you. He can call off Maya. He can call material nature off and say, leave this one alone. This one is mine. He can call off material energy, and everything that happens to you is Krishna's intention and Krishna's work to bring you back to the spiritual world. That's what Krishna really wants to do. He wants us back in the spiritual world, but we have to also want to be out of material nature as well, at least at first. Okay, let's read one more. Let's get someone to read one more paragraph. If I can find the one that I wanted to read. So we read this. No, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. Who wants to read from Unscrupulous Persons?
Unscrupulous persons go immediately to the 10th canto, and especially to the 5 chapters which describe the Lord's rasa dance. This portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most confidential part of this great literature. Unless one is thoroughly accomplished in the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, one is sure to misunderstand the Lord's worshipable transcendental pastimes called rasa dance, and his loving affairs with the gopis. This subject matter is highly spiritual, and only the liberated persons who have gradually attained to the stage of Paramahamsa can transcendentally relish this rasa dance. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, gives the reader the chance to gradually develop spiritual realization before actually relishing the essence of the pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, he purposely invokes a Gayatri Mantra, Dhimahi. This Gayatri Mantra is meant for spiritually advanced people. When one is successful in chanting the Gayatri Mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. One must therefore acquire Brahminical qualities or be perfectly situated in the quality of goodness in order to chant the Gayatri Mantra successfully and then attain to the stage of transcendentally realizing the Lord, his name, his fame, his qualities, and so on.
So gradually, and not jumping ahead, we covered this pretty extensively. What is the other thing that is recommended here now?
Purity, goodness at least.
Right, purity. Coming to the mode of goodness. Coming to the mode of goodness. And so the lifestyle that a devotee leads is meant for that. We wake up early, rising early in the day, before the sun rises. That is the time of the mode of goodness. And we do majority of our activities mode of goodness. We're vegetarian, it's mode of goodness. And we have so many things. We have the 4 regulative principles. These things keep us in the mode of goodness. And then Dhimahi. Does anybody remember how this was translated in the verse? Dhimahi. Yeah, meditation. I meditate upon. So meditation on the Supreme Soul is purifying. Krishna is not just goodness, but he's pure goodness, transcendental goodness. So when we meditate on Krishna, our consciousness and our mind, gradually by that association, becomes purified. And our consciousness becomes into the mode of goodness like that. And when it's completely purified, then when we look at material nature, we see past it, and we see to the essence of it. We see to the spiritual nature. And so when you look at the deities on the altar, you'll see Krishna standing and moving on the same spot simultaneously. Okay, are there any questions at this point? Or comments? Realizations?
This is, sorry, a little bit off topic, but in the translation for Om, it said the translation for Om was, "Oh my Lord." So it is the name of the Lord, is Om?
Yeah, Om is, Krishna says about I am.
So,
That's the sound, the original sound that creates the whole universe, but it is Krishna himself.
so if people, because I think we had this conversation a couple of days ago with the Om Tat Sat, and then the speaker mentioned meditating on Om is not right. Anyone? I think. It's like not bhakti. At least that was my understanding of what he said.
Swami explains Om is A-U-M. And this refers to the living entities, Krishna, and the spiritual energy, or Radharani. So actually, Om is the complete manifestation of everything. It is the living entities, the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Spiritual Potency. And so when you go Om, you're addressing all of those categories. And Krishna is the source of all those categories as well. So generally you'll find Vaishnavas will chant Om. It's a Vaishnava activity to chant Om. So there's no harm in chanting Om, actually. Chanting Hare Krishna, we're saying Hare, spiritual energy of the Lord, O Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. This is the basic kind of translation of Hare Krishna, the Mahamantra. So you have the spiritual energy, the transcendental, in Sanskrit it's Hladini Shakti, the pleasure potency, the spiritual pleasure potency of the Lord. This is what we experience when we chant, and then we just feel happy and blissful. And kirtan. And then you have the living entity who's saying, "Oh my Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. Please engage this soul in devotional service." So the living entity is also there. And then there's Krishna, the all-attractive person. So, Om is another, Hare Krishna is the original Om, you could say, like this. There's one really amazing lecture by Bhakti Vigyan Swami, who's one of our, in this Hare Krishna movement. He's in Russia. He gives this wonderful lecture years ago called Anavriti Shabdat, and it's about how we are liberated by sound vibration. And in there he describes how when you say Om, 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 and at the end you end at the roof of your mouth with the back of your tongue touching the roof of your mouth, and this is called the Bindu. And sages, they hear that Bindu, Om, and if you're advanced, there's a subtle sound that happens after that, and your mind follows that sound, and it's some kind of like high-pitched kind of sound, and then other things start to manifest. and this is described in like Skanda Purana or something, one of the other Vedic literatures. And it goes on and on from that to, gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, so please forgive me. But then you hear Krishna's flute, and then you hear kartals, and then you hear mridanga, and then you hear the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So the root of Om is actually Hare Krishna. And this is all described in the Vedic literature. It's a great lecture. Really cool. It was like a 4-day lecture. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. Any other questions at all? Comments? We do have to end very soon, but we can do one more if someone's got something.
I think the impersonalists use Om a lot also. So sometimes, they don't see the personality of God in the Om. So sometimes devotees are, because it's used so much by impersonalists, like we have Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You have Namo right after Om, which means I offer my obeisances to the Bhagavate, the Supreme Lord. So, devotees see Om in that way, and sometimes they are a little bit careful about the impersonal use of Om.
Yeah, that's true. So generally we promote the chanting Hare Krishna. But for understanding the truth of the matter, so we're not influenced by the impersonalists, but rather we should influence them. Om is actually personal. It's actually Krishna's. Krishna says, I am Om. And the impersonalist philosophy is a new philosophy compared to Krishna consciousness. And so they've simply co-opted our activities into their own and then have propagated that. And there's a long history behind that. If you want to know, you can ask me another time. Jai. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Canto Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hari Bol.